Oh, I don't know if I could really just describe my relationship with flying. I guess it would be love at first sight. I was fascinated with it from the get-go, from the time I had a chance to fly in my wealthy neighbor's nice local jet in Monroe, Louisiana when I was a boy, and until the time I've finished my career and as an airline pilot, about 60 years later. Well, I was born in Monroe, Louisiana. Monroe is a relatively small town. I'm the last of four. My brother was 10 years older, and my sister's 6 and 5 years older. We lived in a wonderful neighborhood. I was lucky. I grew up on a lake. We call them bayous down there, but had a boat. The time I was old enough to drive an outboard motor, miles and miles of woods very nearby to explore and play in. I had a dog, I had my .22 rifle and a 20 gauge shotgun, and it was a great childhood. My father was an attorney in town, and he was practicing in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, when World War II came along. He and my uncle had joined up the day after Pearl Harbor. He went in the Navy, my uncle in the Army. He ended up being the flight director officer on the USS Enterprise, probably the most famous carrier of the Pacific. Japanese thought we had three, but all we had was the Enterprise, one carrier, and she was a great ship. The fighter director officer was responsible for sending our fighter pilots out to intercept the Japanese attackers, as well as to bring our pilots back to the ship and help them find the ship, get aboard the ship. Radar in those days was brand new. The Japanese didn't even have it, and it was a huge advantage for us. But it was not like today's radar that was very sophisticated and tell altitude and speed and all that stuff very quickly. It was an art, much an art form. And I came to understand that he was really good at his job and was specifically commended for his operations as a fighter director officer in some of the big battles like the Marianas Turkey Shoot. He was there for that.
In the Battle of the Philippine Sea in 1944, Naval Air scored its greatest triumph over Japanese carrier aircraft. Now remembered as the Marianas Turkey Shoot, Navy gunners on ship and in the air, and in the space of one day, shot down 400 attacking enemy planes. Japanese naval air was ruined.
And then the war was over, they came home. And then along came after the war baby. So his old friends would come through town sometimes, many of them pilots, most of them pilots, come by for a visit, and I'm this kid hanging out and listening to the conversations. Well, Admiral Goodwin was, I remember him fondly being around the house. He joined the Navy at 17 years of age as an enlisted man. And he rose all the way to the rank of admiral, which is fairly rare. I guess he just saw me as a future, because I had my own admiral's uniform, dress whites. I was about 8 years of age. Gave a pretty crisp salute, and might not be any surprise that I became a naval aviator after my dad and Admiral Goodwin. Graduated from Naval High School, and then I went on to attend Tulane University in New Orleans. Was on a Navy scholarship, and the scholarship at a private university like Tulane was my entree, because I could see that my father, he paid for the first semester. I saw him write that check, and I said, he can't do this. If I want to stay here, I've got to get a scholarship, a full scholarship. And the Navy was tuition, books, $50 a month. It was a good scholarship. 1964, we were still building under Lyndon Johnson, and it was accelerating, and more people were getting killed, and it was on the news every day as the troop buildup continued, and the count of bodies coming home kept increasing as well. You always went out and drilled once a week, which was interesting during those days of Vietnam protests, to be the short-haired people on campus who put their uniforms on every Tuesday and went out on our parade ground and did our little Navy drill, marched and did all that. And the protesters would come out, not massive or anything, but they'd be out there, and they kind of annoyed us in a way. And it was just, we're doing our thing, do your thing. Brought up to be a patriot, brought up to serve the country. I was not going to be a marcher going out against the war, but I certainly didn't dismiss it even at that time either, and even throughout my Navy career. Protesters, that's an American right. That's one thing you do as an American. You agree to disagree and keep doing what you're doing if you believe in it. Oh, these guys. Oh, all right. Well, there I am just starting off. Maybe in fact, I'm a midshipman and graduated in 1968 with a BA in history and my commission as an ensign in the United States Navy. And then you get sent where the Navy desires to send you. And I selected and hoped for aviation and was selected for it. And I knew it was more demanding, more dangerous, harder. But as our maid and growing up in Louisiana said, Mr. David, what don't give you no trouble, don't do you no good.
Pensacola, Florida, a city that remembers the beginning, a name synonymous with the growth and development of naval aviation.
It's where every naval aviator starts. So I was looking forward to it, but a little nervous, of course. And then flight school starts, of course, with a lot of ground school, learn about how airplanes, how they work. You have to be a pretty good physical specimen. You have to have perfect eyesight. Pull-ups and push-ups and sit-ups. And then there's the obstacle course, which was probably tougher. Down in the sand of the beach, and nice hot Pensacola weather, particularly welcomed by those Yankee boys. You got to do some certain amount of swimming. It's pretty easy for me, having grown up on a bayou. But then there's the Dilbert Dunker, which simulates being in a cockpit and ditching in the ocean. And then the aircraft turns over, which can flip. It's just a big metal frame, and you're sitting in a seat like a cockpit, and you're strapped in just like you would be in a cockpit. And you're sitting there, and all of a sudden, a guy pulls the handle, and boom, crash, it turns over and goes upside down in the water. And you've got to unstrap, wait till the bubbles kind of unstrap, and then pull yourself and get out. Well, I thought it was just really fun, It was a great ride. I'd do it again. This is truly just starting out, and so there's the guy right out of Tulane University. This was 1968. My first flying out at Softly Field, which was the basic thing that everybody starts in the little airplane in backgrounds, the T-34B Mentor, prop-driven airplane. As I said, where you opened the cockpit for takeoff and landing. I loved it. I loved flying from the get-go. Pipeline kind of splits after that. Either in those days anyway, you went either to jets or you went to props. And I did want jets, and I did get jets. And so after that, I went to Meridian, Mississippi for basic jet training. Jet training in those days was the T-2B Buckeye. Fun little jet, really was. Had two little jet engines in it that were, it wasn't fast on the top end. It wasn't made to be, but it was very maneuverable. But straight wing makes it safer than a swept winged aircraft. So it was a great little trainer to just really learn to tactically fly an airplane. And you particularly learn that in aerial gunnery. That was highly exciting. It's a very fast maneuvering, and you're shooting live ammunition at this banner out over the Gulf of Mexico. And you probably have, I don't know, 150 hours of flight time? Not very much. You get through that and you go to carrier qualification. You do a practice at another outlying field under the guidance of a landing signal officer. Then an instructor leads you out to the ship, and you're solo then. There's nobody in the world that's going to ride with a student trying to make his first carrier landing. Forget it. And I will admit, I was good at the field, but I rolled into the groove for that first carrier landing, and I was petrified. If I could have turned around at that point and said, I've changed my mind, no thanks, I'm not going to do this, I would have done it, I think. The ship looks pretty damn small all of a sudden. It's a whole different thing than looking at the little airfield with the carrier deck painted on it, but knowing there's a whole runway there. This is real. You're out over the water in the wake of the ship, and the carrier's little, and it's like, this is big time. This is exciting. This is scary. It's a rite of passage. Then you go through the instrument stage, which is the toughest stage. That was the one that probably kicked most people out of the program, because you spent almost all of it under what's called a bag. You're in the back seat, and you have this thing you have to lower over yourself, and you're blocking all view of the outside. You have to fly these difficult instrument approaches. You have to fly a lot of it in those days with partial panel, and so you're flying using only altitude, airspeed, and turn needle, which they don't even have in airplanes anymore. That was extremely challenging.
Once carrier qualified, it's off to Texas to the Advanced Training Command on a new aircraft, the F-9 Cougar, a swept-wing fighter capable of speed in excess of 550 knots.
Weapons, we started dropping little practice bombs, and we started going out and doing road reconnaissance. If you're looking for enemy vehicles and troops and whatnot. The F-9 Cougar was the aircraft we were flying, an old aircraft left over from just after the Korean War. The Grumman Iron Works is the F-9 Cougar, and the reason is they were indestructible. The engine was so tough, you could fly it straight up in the air to zero airspeed in the airplane again like this, and the yaw string would go up as you kind of backed down and went boom. Tough airplanes. It was fun. You started to feel like a real pilot at that point. I might be the real deal here, you know? You know, when I did get my wings at the end of the program, was awarded my wings, I will say that I knew I had accomplished something in my life when I got those Navy wings pinned on me, because I knew a lot of guys who wanted them but didn't get them. I knew some guys that died during flight training, so it was a real test. Then it's where your orders take you. We had one great Marine instructor. He had us out there as if we were really, he made us feel like we were real pilots right along with him. We could go out on a mission tomorrow, and we wanted to go to the fleet. And in those days, say out of 40, 50 guys, there were 3 or 4 that got fleet orders. And then there were training squadron orders, and then there was the rest. My orders were back to VT4, the squadron I had gone through in training to teach gunnery, essentially, and then I knew there was also carrier qualifications, of course, who were called plowbacks, plowed directly back as instructors from graduating. A little disappointed in not getting fleet orders, or a lot disappointed, but in retrospect, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. Yeah, going back as an instructor is, a little bit, because you're just barely ahead of these guys in the program, but all of a sudden, you're the guy who knows everything, and he's the student who, bowing at your feet, following every command. And it was great for me. It really did make me a more proficient instrument pilot. So I could get an airplane and just fly out to San Diego Friday afternoon and have a good time with some friends in San Diego, and then get in the airplane again and fly back on Sunday. It was pretty awesome.
Okay, the Hawk's got the tally on him. One coming up on you. There's one coming. Okay, F5 down below. You got him 7? Yep. Okay. Okay, I got him locked. He's going 20 right at 4 miles. Okay, forget it. He's on me. 3 o'clock down. I've got him.
My good friend Ed Woods and I became friends in basic jet training in Meridian. And then we went back as instructors to VT4 together because we had the exact same grade. We were at the top of the VA-25. Ed and I were basically just big time into flying as much as we could. So we could get an airplane. They had enough airplanes to cover the rest of the schedule for the day. We just had to go see the operations officer, and he'd grant it, and off we'd go. We called ourselves Cajun Flight. I'm a Louisiana boy, and we would launch out and then look for somebody to jump and just have our little dogfight. Of course, we jumped squadron mates from anything, another T2, an A4, or whatever we could find. And if it was a single guy, he didn't have a chance because we were young, but we knew how to do what's basically called the fighter weave. And it's just a great protective maneuver. If the enemy starts to get on the other one guy's 6, the other guy comes in behind the enemy, and then he's got to break it off or get shot down himself. And you just do it by this weave thing, and it works remarkably well. We never lost.
Okay, tally ho. Tally ho, I got him. Going the other way. Okay. He's no threat to you now. I can't do anything about it. Okay, 300 knots. Yeah, tally ho. His nose isn't on me, but I'm in deep trouble here.
Sounds crazy in a way. Why would a guy choose to go to war if he could choose to go cruise the Med? But I decided still wanted to go to the fleet and fly. And I mean, I've just learned how to do all these things in an airplane, how to use an airplane as a weapon. And not to go do it, I don't know, it's kind of, I wanted to go to the ultimate and do that rather than just go to the Med and go have nice layovers in Naples or whatever. I wanted to experience the full thing. And so I put in for early departure out of ET4. And so I did get my orders to a training squadron for the A7 Echo aircraft, A7 Corsair. The Navy describes it as a light attack jet. So it was a very capable aircraft, and it would carry a heavier load, bomb load, go further, last longer without having to refuel. It was the only airplane at the time with a heads-up display rather than what we call an iron gun sight, you know. Airplane of choice for the forward air controllers in Vietnam because we were just more accurate because of our equipment.
An onboard computer will automatically release his selected weapon at the precise instant to ensure the maximum target accuracy. With laser and electronic guided weapons, the A7's accuracy is even further improved.
Yeah, my orders out of the replacement air group were to VA-27 and one of the fleet squadrons, and they were going to deploy in about a month after I joined them. So I got in just as the last guy to fill a slot, and we did a lot of work up. We were still bombing and doing all that stuff over at Fallon, Nevada, the place where we did most of our practice bombing. And the other big different thing is you go out to the ship and not only do day carrier landings, but you do night carrier landings. There's no such thing as a routine night carrier landing.
Out there, I think I see my crater.
I mean, I know for a fact that Commander Al Shepard, who went to the moon, and was asked when he came back what it was like, and he said, well, it was technically very difficult, it was very challenging, et cetera, he said, but aviation-wise, there's nothing like a night carrier landing. So they're hard, and they're exciting every time you do one, and there's somebody out there just about every night is having a problem. Doing the first ones were the most exciting, of course. Your visual cues aren't there. It's a black hole out there. You can't imagine how dark it is at sea. There's just not a light anywhere except that little bitty light on the ship.
Making a successful landing on a carrier may seem to be more difficult than coming in to land on a runway ashore. The landing area is in motion and is subject to the effects of wind and sea.
The flying was challenging, and I reveled in the difficulty of the flying, even around the ship. I was actually pretty good at it, and the first time I flew aboard the ship with the squadron, I was easily in the top half of the squadron. I mean, my skipper actually said when I won the competition 1 month, he said he's never seen that happen with a first tour aviator, nor did he expect to ever see it again. So I was good at the ship, and that helps a lot.
This is the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the USS Enterprise. From a deck of almost 4.5 acres, the Enterprise can launch in a single strike over 1/2 million pounds of conventional explosives.
I remember sailing out and going out of the San Francisco harbor, and there comes the Golden Gate, and like, oh my God, we are leaving. And then all of a sudden you see this red stuff come over the side, and we thought, it's war protesters with paint, and thought they were, dumping paint on the ship. What it wasn't, it was probably some of the wives with red roses. flowers hit the deck, so that's a memory. Off we went across the Pacific Ocean. And just kind of an official photo of the USS Enterprise, just serving the nation on there. Well, Kennedy, I'm going to tell the camera who you are. This is my grandchild, Kennedy, and she is visiting while we're doing this up here. And she is my love. I love her. These are some photos from a long time ago, Kennedy. When I was in the Navy flying in the Pacific Ocean, these are just bicycles going down the road. Peasants, probably, carrying loads, whether they're just domestic or military, who knows. That's a bridge, obviously, going across a river. And some of these say secret, no foreigners, but after all these years, I'm sure it's not important. This is one of a surface-to-air missile site, a SAM site. You can see the distinctive little ring around it. And in the center was the radar guidance system, which would be our target in a strike missile attack. Just a nice shot of an A-7 overhead the ship, the Enterprise. Yeah, when we left the Subic Bay and headed toward the Gulf of Tonkin, finally realized this is where the rubber meets the road. This is it. First, they put you down in Dixie Station, down south, where the danger is a lot less. You'd fly missions under the control of forward air controllers, normally airborne forward air controllers, and spotting targets for you and calling in your ordnance on most often troops, I think. You know, as long as you stayed above 3,500 feet, you were clear of ground fire. You know, after a little time down there on Dixie Station, we went up north, and my first mission up to Hanoi, as you're going in there and you're just about to, what we call coast in over the coast, and the enemy radar starts to seek you out and identify you, and you have a little gauge in the cockpit that tells you when they're doing that, gets your attention. They started looking at me with the radar, and it started going bzzz, bzzz, with this little instrument we have in the cockpit that tells you the enemy radar is looking at you individually. You're going like, oh man, why didn't I go to the med? On these missions, called alpha strikes, because there'd be a whole bunch of airplanes doing it at one time, essentially. And you roll in all together, which was a whole new concept, because you've got to just trust your lead. All you can do is fly on your lead. You can't look at your gun sight and track your HUD, track the target. So you're just waiting, and he gives you a command when he's releasing the bomb, and you just release yours. And then when you pull off, you go as fast as you can for the coast, just to get back out to sea. Checking the other guy's six, going back toward the coast, 100% RPM, fast as you can go. Normally there'd be 2 missions a day and sometimes a spare, so it could be 3 missions a day. So it makes for pretty long days. I mean, you consider the briefing, the debrief, 2-hour mission, you add it up and you're getting there. Like anything, you kind of get used to it, You never think they're going to get you. You got to think that way. We were lucky as an air when we didn't lose many pilots. So it became routine, but it was always exciting to be shot at. And as you get closer to the target, the faster you're going, and you're weaving, and he rolls in, you roll in and drop, and then you're hauling ass for the coast, I had mixed emotions about the war. One of the things that was fortunate is I think you could actually let it be known in our squadron, and the skipper and the XO were large enough intellects to understand that and know that would be normal, possibly, and not consider you some kind of traitor or something. I had good leadership. I was very lucky. I remember my roommate came in, it was approaching Christmas time, and did a mission attacking some North Vietnamese troops. And they came back with a report of how many troops had been KBA, killed by air. And we went like, damn. Kind of the what have I done thing, I pulled across a South Vietnam village one time, and we happened to be loaded with 6,000-pound bombs. 1,000-pound bomb's a pretty good-sized bomb. And they blow up, they make a hell of a hole. I could see the village, beautiful little village in the jungle down there, and just all 6 of them in a string, you know, they just, and look back and just saw across that beautiful little village. You just thought, God, I hope there are only soldiers in there. It was not altogether good feeling. What is the purpose of this war? Is this, you know? I tried to maintain my belief that, you know, which in retrospect is a little foolish, I guess, that Washington knew what it was doing, which it didn't. But I believe in that. Otherwise, you're crazy. You're killing people for no reason. Near the end of the war was when Richard Nixon made the decision to expand the attack on North Vietnam and send the B-52s over Hanoi and Haiphong. Really put maximum pressure on the North Vietnamese. And the peace process at the table in Paris was going nowhere, and he was getting frustrated. You know, we were part of that. We were over there to support, you know, the B-52s mainly were doing the night attacks, the big heavy ordnance they would, you know, huge loads they could drop. But it was highly exciting flying with all the ordnance they were throwing at everybody. I did see one B-52 get hit by a SAM and explode and go crashing to the ground, which was pretty sad. But I didn't have time to concentrate on because I was still busy dodging the ones I could see that had my number on it. In my opinion, for what it's worth, I think it did get the North Vietnamese to negotiate seriously at the table. And we did huge damage to their industrial capability, their rail yards, their manufacturing plants they had. I know he's criticized by some circles for it. In my opinion, it probably was a big factor in ending the war. Well, the whole cruise lasted 6 months, but almost half of it was peacetime after the war ended. After that, it was just, you know, kind of staying over there to show the flag, I guess. You do a big fly-in when you come back, which is cool, you know, into the U.S. And I had my radar on, and could first start to paint the coastline, recognize that California coastline. And I'm like, yes, it's true. We are going home. There are people out there to welcome you back. Some of my buddies were there saying, welcome back. And, you know, the airlines are hiring. If you're interested, we're all going to get jobs with the airlines. It was great. I had put in my letter of resignation with some mixed emotions. Bottom line is, if you wanted a family, it was going to be hard on a family, very hard. But anyway, I finally got out in October, a few months after we came back. Yeah, about 5.5 years of active duty. 92, I believe it is. 92 combat missions. And then I did do about 3 more years of Navy Reserves. After I got out of the Navy Reserves, a friend of mine sent me these. They had taken them of our aircraft. These are VA-304. We love to fly fast and low. And you can see the sky is pretty low coming in, smoking. It's just a tremendous rush. The high thing up there is the poem High Flight, which is known by all naval aviators. It's just a wonderful little poem about the thrills of flying in the Navy or in a tactical aircraft. Want me to read you part of it?
Yeah, would you read it for me?
I can get it down. You told me. And like I said, I have more growing experiences in that 5.5 years of my active duty Navy life than any other time in my 5.5 years of my life, by far. It was good for me, and and looking back, I laugh at some of the things we did and crazy stuff we did, but it was all fun. I'm not looking back and regretting it. I'm thinking, God, that was fun to do. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter-silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds and done 100 things you have not dreamed of. Wheeled and soared and swung high in the sunlit silence. Hovering there, I've chased the shouting wind along and flung my eager craft through footless halls of air. Up the long, delirious burning blue, I've topped the wind-swept heights with easy grace, where never lark nor even eagle flew. And while with silent lifting mind I've trod the high untrespassed sanctity of space, put out my hand and touched the face of God. John McGee. And we do feel that way, that we've done things that, you know, most people have a hard time imagining with these tactical airplanes, these highly maneuverable jets that you're actually paid to fly.